Oh. All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. We have all five of our committee members here present. We have a quorum. And because of that, we are going to call this. Would you mind?
You just got it.
Thank you. All right. Oh, that's much better. I'm like, I don't want to hear myself, so. Thank you. So with that, I call this this meeting of Judiciary and Public Safety Committee meeting to order. And for those who are following along on the agenda, that is item number 1. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. And those on Zoom as well. All right, so we're going to close item 1 and open up item 2 on the agenda, which is consideration of the minutes of the December 4th, 2023 meeting. Who's to approve? All right, so moved. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We're going to then close item 2. Item 3, share comments on meeting and agenda organization. Nothing really significant for discussion for me this evening, other than we are going to have 2 presentations. We were going to have one of these in 2023, but we just had a lot of going on with budget and other things. So thank you for being so kind to delay that. So the presentations will be rather focused. So they're going to be 10-15-minute presentations, and we'll offer comments or questions we would ask it at that point. I'll probably, since there's only a few here present, if you have a question, you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So with that, I'm going to close item number 3. Opening item number 4, public comments within the jurisdiction of this committee. I'll start in the room. Anyone like to make a comment? Oh, yes. Please come forward.
Quick one. I know that at the next county board, Kay Horan, Supervisor District 5. I know that at the next county board meeting, we're going to be addressing the kiosks for fentanyl testing and that kind of thing. What I did at the last health board meeting was say, what is in that? And I asked that those be brought so that we can see and make sure that we understand what's being requested of the board to approve that. Okay. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone on Zoom who would like to speak tonight? Okay. All right. With that, we will then close item number 4 on the agenda. Opening item number 5, communications shared by committee members. Supervisor Plum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let the committee and the people present know the next Safe Streets Initiative meeting is going to be on January 26th at noon in branch 3 of the circuit court. So if anybody would like to be there, just a heads up. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Isaac.
I think it'd be relevant for you to announce that 3 of the 5 sitting committee members will not.
Okay, yeah, I can surely talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that you didn't have any comments.
No.
Okay, I thought I saw you go like that.
I was just clarifying the date of Safe Streets.
Oh, okay. Okay, I actually do have 2 comments. Give me 1 second, please. I want to first just let everyone know that we did receive an email from Director Rasmussen Powers, who is retiring, Becky Powers. And she's retiring on February 2nd, 2024. And, you know, this is an area in which we don't really have a lot of discussion around in terms of emergency management. I thought it was really appropriate and, good for everyone to just know that she is retiring and she's done a lot for the community and a lot for emergency management. So I just wanted to say thank you for her service and, wish her well in her retirement. The next is Supervisor Eisen mentioned, it's more of a heads up for everyone, I suppose. Of this current committee, 3 will not be pursuing a new term. So 3 have decided not to run again. And we'll talk more about that once we get a little closer to the end of this term, because there are some on this committee who have served for quite a while and has done a lot of really good things for this community, and he definitely needs to be given some appreciation for that. So more to come on that. All righty. With that, I'm going to close item number 5 on the agenda. And we're going to open up item number 6. This is going to be a presentation, a 10 to 15 minute presentation, and we will allow some time for questions after that is concluded. So with that, I'm going to ask Damascus Road Project, come on, and the floor is yours. Oh no, I just realized you. Are you able to come up?
Tech savvy misses.
Are you going to be connecting in? Okay,
He showed me how, so I just want to make sure I do it
perfect.
properly. Hey. So I'm Kelly Olson, and I'm the Services and Operations Director with Damascus Road Project. I have been with Damascus Road, I'm going into my 10th year now serving as a full-time plus volunteer. A little bit about us. Our organization was formed in 2009, and we are an all-volunteer-led organization that works to fight the evils of human trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. So we focus on educating, restoring, and empowering those who've been abused and advocating for the prevention and abolition of trafficking and exploitation. And while we operate throughout Wisconsin, we primarily serve needs of women here in Oshkosh and the greater Fox Valley area. And as of right now, we have over 100 years of collective experience working with women who've been trafficked or sexually exploited. This is contact information for our organization. And for those of you who are a little bit familiar with us, you'll note that there are some new addresses there. As of today, we just opened a new location at 1528 Oregon Street with administrative 1606A. And I wanted to share a little bit about how we do what we do. So in order to best serve our clients, we go through a lot of extensive training. We travel all over the country and even all over the world to participate in anti-human trafficking efforts and get training through other experts in the field. So I have some of those shown here. And I wanted to just really briefly, because I want to educate just a tiny bit on exactly what sex trafficking is. So it's forcing a person into a commercial sex trade against their will. So recruitment, harboring, transporting, obtaining, or maintaining a person by one of these 3 things: force, fraud, or coercion. And it can be any one of those or any combination of those. And this includes threats of harm or physical restraint, psychological manipulation, which is very common, shame and fear-inducing threats, things like that, threats to share photos or information to expose somebody for what they've done, or report them to the authorities. Commercial sexual exploitation in many ways is synonymous with sex trafficking. And it includes any kind of sexual exploitation for profit. So this could be escorts, street or brothel prostitution, pornography, strip clubs, anything of value given to or received by a person in exchange for some kind of sexual act by another person is considered commercial sexual exploitation. So what we do, we have 3 pillars. The first is that we educate. So our education is bringing the community into understanding better what we do, and also prevention. So we offer both professional and community-based training opportunities to this whole list so far. We work with attorneys, both on the defense side and the prosecution side, local church groups, civics organization, and community members, foster programs, hotels and motels, training their staff, hospital staff, judges, youth groups, you name it. So I have a picture here of some of our community trainings from this last summer and going into fall. And as you can see, we get a really nice turnout of people who come to learn about what's happening in the community and what they can do about it. We also work with Oshkosh North High School with their communities program. And every year, Tara, who is the gal on the right, works with them, and they come up with a community-based project that they can do to bring awareness and education. And we train professionals. There's a picture up top there of Lisa training all the TSA agents at all the airports throughout Wisconsin, doing some training at the tech, and also some public trainings for the Boys and Girls Brigade, and some other groups throughout the area. The second thing we do is locate and identify people who are being trafficked or sexually exploited. And we perform outreach in the community to identify people who are being victimized. And a lot of those referrals come to us through this list that's right here. Treatment programs, county jails, probation and parole. Hey, it said I'm out of time already?
No, you're good.
Okay, my timer must have been off.
You
Law
have like
enforcement
5 or so
referrals.
minutes yet.
Okay, great. Current clients who refer friends to us that are having the same experience. And we also work with the women's prisons in the state. So here's some collaborative organizations that we do work with in our area. So you'll probably recognize most of these up here. We've done a lot of work with OPD, MENA PD, Menasha PD, continuing to develop our relationship with the County Sheriff's Department and the jail, which we've been in since 2017. And we have this poster, which is actually hanging in the pods right here at this jail. And it helps women who are incarcerated for maybe shoplifting or a drug charge, other things that might not self-identify, which is one of the biggest problems that we see, to identify themselves as someone who's maybe having a trafficking or exploitation experience. And we get a lot of referrals for these posters being in the pods here in jail. So we're really grateful to have that collaboration. So educate, locate, and advocate. And this is pictures of our office that we just moved out of, because we aren't even completely set up with our new office yet. But we have a reception area, kitchen, drop-in that we currently offer on Mondays and Thursdays. That's all volunteer staff and by appointment. And then we have a library with books that are written by survivors that can be encouraging and uplifting. We have a boutique full of clothing that's donated. So when a girl comes to us, we can provide clothing, hygiene, and toiletry items at no charge to them. Sometimes when they come to jail, for instance, all they have is the outfit that's on them. And then we give them what we call an Exodus bag. It's got all of these things in it, hygiene and toiletry items, so that they can start fresh and not have to worry about these basic needs. We also have organizations throughout the community that tie these blankets for us, and every girl gets a fleece blanket. They love these. We provide every girl with a community resource guide. It's available to each client, and we update these regularly as we learn about more resources that are available in community. We also host a monthly family dinner for our clients. if they have littles, and our volunteers, different organizations throughout the community will make a dinner and serve it, and we get nice sized groups of women that come in, and we just get to pour into them and love on them and have them have a safe space. I put this in here because I wanted to point out the fact that Wisconsin is one of only 16 states in the country that does not have residential space for women who have that trafficking or exploitation experience. Lack of stable housing is one of our biggest barriers to the survivor experience, and we know that there's a critical need. And so while there are a couple that are going to be opening, one in Pewaukee and one in Madison in the next couple of years, we know in the greater Fox Valley area that there's a huge deficit here. So I just wanted to mention that. We also launched Warrior Wear, which is a social enterprise in 2023. We have apparel and jewelry, other trinkets that we are now able to sell to generate revenue and help teach employability skills to the women that we work with. And here's some of the booths that we've been setting up, like at Life Fest.
Show your shirt.
My shirt. Yep. So that's just launched and we're just getting that going. So our goal is to walk alongside each girl, providing love, understanding, compassion, prayer, faith, empowerment, mentorship, support, and guidance in a judgment-free, safe environment. That's the whole goal. During 2022 and 23, we transported 15 women to long-term programs out of state because there aren't any in Wisconsin. And here are some of the programs that we partner with throughout the United States. These are available to these girls at no cost, and we absorb all of the expense for the transport and then providing with them with the things that they need. And then I just have some statistics I wanted to share with you guys quickly before I close. 89% of sex trafficked or sexually exploited women want to leave, but see no other options for survival. Up to 95% of women in the industry were sexually abused as children. It's been our experience as an organization that that number is probably even higher. At least 75% of women that have experienced trafficking or exploitation have also experienced homelessness. 85% of them struggle with addiction. And again, I would say here our experience is that that number is higher locally. 82% of prostituted women report being physically assaulted, and they experience PTSD at rates equivalent to combat war veterans. 240 times the death rate than any other so-called profession. A little over 84% of traffickers advertise online or utilize social media to recruit. And we've seen that number go up exponentially since COVID, when people kind of were stuck at home and relying on their computers. Wisconsin experienced an increase of 142% in reported trafficking events during COVID, when we also experienced a 63% decrease in services during the pandemic. 80% report being raped at least once. 73% have been raped more than 5 times. And here's our chart since we started counting in 2017 when people convinced us, hey, we probably should start keeping stats. These are the number of clients that we've served each year, including 2023, we had 112 new clients. So 647 to date. I'd say easily 2/3 of those we still work with regularly. And if you want to know where it's happening, we have clients from every one of these communities throughout Wisconsin. Look, see if you can find your hometown there, or towns that are around your hometown. Most of our clients are in that gold circle, but yes, it is happening everywhere. In addition, we've served women from these other states that have come to Wisconsin and internationals from China and Africa. And the following tribal affiliations: Lakota, Menominee, Oneida, and Choctaw. So we are very, very busy. And I'm just gonna wrap there and let you guys ask questions if you have any.
Sounds great. Thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Supervisor Blum.
So from what I understand, you guys are an all volunteer organization.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And then also, and I know that you guys have been thinking about next steps for growth, because the demand, from what I've heard from you and from other boards in your organization, demand outstrips what you guys can currently offer. Is that true, or is that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
By a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
And so in your mind, what do you think you need in order to grow?
To simplify it, I would say more volunteers, because the more we add, the more we need.
Sure.
The more we need money. That's always what supports this, and community knowledge and support. So the more that we can educate in the community and pull people alongside us to partner with us, the better off we all are. And so we continue to work on building those relationships, like with the judges, the prosecutors, the public defenders and stuff like that. And those relationships, continuing to grow those, growing our relationship with you guys has been critical to serve the people that we're serving. So right now, another thing that we really need is space. We just moved from about 1,700 square feet to 2 buildings that'll give us about 3,500 square feet, and I may be off a little. So we've grown, but it's not nearly enough to implement all the things that we want to implement.
And then just one quick follow-up. So in the jail here,
Mhm.
what do you see? I mean, what percentage of the female inmate population have, I mean, I guess how many approached you? And then from, I guess, kind of looking over, if you have a number, what percentage of the female inmate population has, had some sort of important experience with this, or have been adjacent to this?
Okay, so I'm going to actually ask if any of you know roughly how many female inmates there are right now. If you were gonna take a poke at it, because I know the majority are male, right?
Because from what I understand.
Because as of last week, we had 14 clients in this facility. So you could, if we know roughly, then we'll know the percentage. But those are the ones that have been identified.
Okay. I'm sure that I've looked at and I've read that the numbers of female inmates who have experience in former sex trafficking is high.
It is.
It is high.
So we went to Cheetah Correctional Institute and sat in on a event that they do every year. They have all sorts of vendors come in and set up for like employers, campuses that are looking to give reentry education and stuff like that. And we set up there. We were there and they take all the girls that are going to be released in that year and have them come through. We picked up close to 40 new clients that day, just sitting there. And those are the only the ones that are going to be released that year that had the courage to come to our table and talk to us and identify.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Jeffrey.
Yes, thank you. And I really appreciate that you have that, we have a service here, a local service that steps up on something like this. I think a lot of what a lot of the public doesn't realize, the problem with trafficking is that, I think a lot of people think that trafficking comes from, something maybe along the border, whether it be something like through immigration, but most of it happens through social media. And it's everyone thinks that it can't happen here. And so I have a question in regards to have you applied to the Wisconsin Coalition of Sexual Assault WCASA at all? Has anyone applied for that yet?
No.
Okay. And could you tell me a little bit more about how your volunteers are trained? Like, who provides the training?
So we take advantage of any training opportunities that are offered to us. ACEs training, the state of Wisconsin has conferences that we go to. We participate in national and international conferences. I have my certifications through Moody Bible Institute and Stanford University. And then we train our own staff. So sometimes we'll take the whole group. I think we had 10 or 12 of us that went to the state conference in Stevens Point this last year in autumn. And then we come back and we'll bring instructors in, like, because when we did our ACES certification, we brought an instructor in, and we're actually adding the second part of that. That's adverse childhood experiences. Because we are learning more and more about how childhood experiences translate into adulthood. And if you've got childhood trauma, like childhood sexual abuse, you experience a change in your brain and the way it works at the time that trauma happens. So even though we grow up and we gain academic knowledge and we mature, as adults, there's a part of us that's still stuck at that age. And until that trauma is walked through and healed, it makes somebody even more vulnerable to being recruited and taken advantage of. So we make sure that we, as part of our intake, we also do an ACEs questionnaire on every client we meet, as well as a 4-page survey that tells us medical background, mental health background, and legal history.
Is, in the future, is that something, that, Damascus Road would be looking into applying to be members of the Wisconsin Coalition of Second?
I would love to learn more about it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm not as familiar with what might be a great partnership there, but I'd love to know more.
Okay, great. And, now in regards to your drop-in services, I think that's great news. Tell me a little bit about the security at that place.
So the new place that we have has a security system with cameras and alarm keypad for the door.
Mhm.
And we're also grateful for our law enforcement because they're going to know exactly where we are and they know our drop-in hours. And we sometimes you can pick up a client. If a client gets picked up by law enforcement 10 o'clock at night, we might need to get them clothing and a Exodus bag at 10 o'clock at night. So there are times where we're going to be there outside of hours. If they need a soft interview space, we can provide a place that's more comfortable, food, something to drink. We have a shower now at our new place, so if they're coming off the street, they can take a shower. And we can meet Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We can meet the base so that then we can dig into the ick, right?
Sure.
And so that can happen anytime. So one of the other things that we're going to implement is just getting to know our neighbors, so they know who we are and what we do.
Okay, that kind of is a segue into my final question here. Is obviously the one of the most important things about this is to make sure that survivors are kept safe.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the best practices that that your organization has to keep survivors safe, and then let's just go with like the worst case scenario. Let's say a trafficker finds out where their victim is. What is your protocol for that?
So this is a struggle, and I'll be really honest. We don't have a lot of resources in the community to keep people safe, especially if they're tied here through probation and parole because they're having legal issues or criminal issues. We are not able to utilize the services of Christine Ann Center. They're not equipped to handle their clients. And so that's not an option for us. COTS, it's hard to know if they're open or closed, whether they're taking clients or not. It's not become an option. Father Cars won't take our clients. So it's been really hard. We have one of our options is to put somebody in a hotel, but that re-traumatizes them because sometimes if they've been victimized at a hotel and you put them in a hotel,
Right.
They either re-victimize or they commit crimes because that's survival now also, and survival sex is a big piece of what we deal with women. So relocating them, we have a partnership with Harbor House, Golden House. We have a place in Wausau that we utilize. We would look to try and get them out of an area if they're dealing with addiction. We will try and get them into recovery programs where they're housed there while we're continuing to work on things. We've worked with the jails and the prisons to transport girls out of state, and had to be really creative with our transport so that we're picking up at an odd time that normally, inmates are not released. And we've gone to the wrong door, not the one that they normally come out of, and put them in one of our cars and driven out of community to take them outside to someplace safe. And all we have is 911 if somebody's found.
Okay.
So there isn't a huge, great answer for that, and I wish there was.
Have you, what's your communication been to what the Day by Day Warming Shelter?
We partner with them also with the programming that they're in the process of shifting to right now. Again, it's great because they don't have to stand in line night after night after night hoping for a bed that night, because we see a lot of times our women are solicited right there while they're waiting for a bed. Because if a man pulls up in a car and can offer you a hot bed and a good meal, and you don't even have to stay in a room with all these other people, and You can take a shower. It's lucrative to some.
Mhm.
Or if you're turned away that night because there aren't enough beds.
Right.
But now, if they get into a program, they're doing 30, 60, 90, and they can rest assured that they have that bed for the first 30 days and it's meeting thresholds. And they can continue into the next phase and such, so that's helpful.
Is there, you know, this is just kind of like, you know, it's presenting a conundrum in my head here about, you know, what to do to keep those survivors safe. And obviously, maybe this is something I can help out with your operation too, is like, is there any particular organization that you would think would be ideal to be a safe haven? You know, anyone locally, either within Winnebago County that you can think of?
So we have a really great collaborative relationship with organization called Oak Home. They are still in the development phase. They're looking for a place. But they have all the training and experience. The organization is run by a woman who's the former person who ran Christine Ann Center. So she's got a lot of shelter experience. And she's just trying to find the place. And that would be, I think, something that would be great if we could locate the right place. She wants to be able to rent it and then be on site to make sure girls are safe and that they're getting the supportive services that they need. And we know that we need both emergency or short-term solutions as well as long-term solutions.
Okay.
So
I believe,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's fine. Supervisor Tyson, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first question that just popped into my mind is, what is the age spread of your clients?
our youngest client that we took in was 16 when we met her. Our most mature client is well into her 60s. And she's a very regular client. So we see her regularly, and I know she's actively in the light still.
Now, could you describe your relationship to our human services department and programs that they administer?
New.
Now, I
It's new.
thought I heard you say that you've been with this program for 10 years.
I'm in my 10th year right now. I started in early
Through that period of time, I haven't heard Damascus Road in any annual public forums or the Human Services Department and Board, what your relationship has been with them.
Sure. I said it's new. We were invited and we went to a meeting for Human Services, and I did a little shorter version of what we just did tonight so that we could become acquainted. And I'll be really transparent with you. We are drowning in service right now. And so we haven't had the opportunity to develop a lot of these relationships. And our exposure to the community started with us applying for the ARPA funding in June and starting to go to those meetings and having you guys start to get acquainted with us a little bit at a time. And it's taken us all out of our comfort zone. But it's also been really good because we're being seen and we're being heard now. And I can see like ears clicking a little bit, and I'm sure y'all are thinking, oh, they should connect with so-and-so and so-and-so, like you just said a little earlier. So we're going to learn a lot about what other resources are available for us to help better serve these women. But we are so buried in the trenches, around the clock, literally. I have women reaching out to me 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I have the most patient husband known on earth, and Lisa, our executive director, has a husband who's just an absolute saint because it never stops. And so to try and balance building relationships and community with serving these women is something that we're learning. So we're open to them, just trying to figure out how to pack even more into the sardine can that's already super packed. Absolutely excited for it though. You bet.
Any other questions?
Hi.
You probably mentioned this at an ARPA Spirit Fund meeting. Could you please describe briefly, current the funding, public, private, nonprofit, or grants?
Sure. So to date, we have never taken government funding. All of our funding has come from small grants from businesses and community organizations, or from private donors. So we have sustained ourselves up to this point doing those kinds of things, to going to Pizza Ranch and bussing tables on a Monday night to raise $400, or speaking at a Rotary Club breakfast and they'll pass a hat, or any kind of opportunity that comes along that way. But we haven't taken any government funding at all. So yeah.
Otherwise, Supervisor Deputy already asked the questions. I was mostly curious about the security, and you already answered that.
Yep. That is definitely something that there's always room for improvement. Again, funding those things also takes raising more funds, which takes us away from serving the clients. And so that delicate balance of having people that can do all the things, that's the thing we're always negotiating.
Thank you. Again, thank you so much for your time. And I had other questions, but actually all of my committee members asked them. Very, very astute individuals for sure. But I will make just a quick comment. One of the reasons why I really thought this was a good fit for presentation is over this past year, this committee has heard about this issue to a point where we actually added a position in part focusing on exploitation and trafficking.
We're so excited about that too.
Yes, it's fantastic that we're able to allocate more resources.
Mhm.
And I think so. I think it's important for us to understand the complexity as a committee, but also I think for someone who didn't know that this was an issue, right? I think there is a community service that we could provide by helping people understand, this is a problem. And this is why this is something that's critical, that as a community would come together and try to help in any way we can. So
We're grateful for that, and grateful for you guys teaching us how to be more involved with community government. We're grateful for the exposure, the experience. Thank you.
all right. Thank you again. Okay, that does close item number 6 on the agenda. Opening item 7, which is again another presentation. Helios recovery. Please come forward. Get connected and please begin when you're ready.
You want to, there's, they're in the folder, if everybody was.
Thank you.
Great.
What's that?
Right.
You know what, while you're doing that, I'm going to put you on the spot. Actually, Supervisor Deppering was the one who approached me to inquire if this would be a good fit for the committee. And do you have any thoughts before we start the presentation?
See here, I know that I think one of the things I wanted to that I really wanted to bring forward to this committee is that Helios has been very active in Outagamie County for many, many years. And now they're looking into expanding services into Winnebago County. And I feel that, and of course, Patty will talk about this better at length than I can, but I do think that Helios can certainly offer some things that maybe some other organizations around here cannot when it comes to specifically in regards to recovery for parents in recovery. I think, that's all I'll say. I don't want to, steal Patty's thunder here, so.
Sounds good, thank you. Begin whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Brian. I don't think we did.
That's
I'm Patty Heffernan, with Helios Heuristic. I'm the executive director. I am also the owner of Helios Addiction Recovery Services. And I'm talking today about our nonprofit organization and wraparound support service. So we are a nonprofit with a mission to reduce the number of kids in foster care due to substance use through early intervention, education, and wraparound support services. We are a program of people with lived experience in child welfare and substance use disorder. I personally am somebody who aged out of the foster system, and I am a person in long-term recovery, and I have not had a chaotic relationship with substances since March 17th of 2001. Many substance use recovery programs are designed for the needs of single unattached individuals. When you go to treatment, typically there's a few, well, really only one, where you're able to bring your children with you for women, and there's absolutely nowhere where men can go to treatment with their children at all. There's still a lot of stigma around being a parent who has an addiction themselves. Even with our certified peer specialist programs or parents, certified peer specialists, those are people who are parents of someone who has an addiction, but when you are the one that is prepared to be responsible and the caretaker, the stigma and the support are still not there. So this is just our program overview. I don't want to just read that off of there, but typically we make contact usually through word of mouth. We have a cordial but contentious relationship with child welfare. We don't get a whole lot of referrals, although we have been making really good relationships with the Allegheny County Family Recovery Court. So Judge Metropolis is a big fan of the work that I've done prior to getting this program up and running. So we're hoping that that will change soon. Most of our referrals come from jail ministries. And in relation to the last presentation, there is a lot of overlap between the people that we serve and the people that they serve. So we make contact, we build that trust, we give them the space to tell their side of the story without somebody telling them, that, well, you need to take responsibility, you need to do this, you need to do that. We just give them the space to let that charge get passed so that we can even get to a space of talking about what our next steps. So then we just kind of evaluate, we look at their protected plan. It's almost like a language barrier when social workers are coming in and speaking professionalese and acronyms that they don't understand. Plus, this is a different situation. This is, even though there are reasons and there may even be valid reasons for the removal, that individual's body is still responding as though their child was just kidnapped. And that child's body, I can tell you from experience, is still responding as though they are being kidnapped, even though it is the government intervening. So many times when they're getting all this information, all the things that they're supposed to do, they're not even able to retain or understand what anybody's saying. A lot of those trauma responses are in place during those times. And sometimes that ends up getting connected to a social worker at all. So every time they end up meeting with that social worker, they're still not able to let that in, or they're fawning, or they're trying to figure out what that social worker wants to hear instead of the actual truth about what they need. Then our further steps, we collaborate, we ask them what it is they need, what they think they want to do, what they want to see happen. What are ways in which you can advocate for yourself if somebody was wrong? I mean, many times child welfare, and sometimes even in court cases, it can be a game of telephone, and those clerical errors can be very difficult to correct. But I believe that our justice system wants to find the truth, so we always try to connect them with resources that can get them that, if in fact they are telling the truth. If they're not, that's a different story. Love it.
So step 4, we try to remove as many barriers as possible. Up until December of 2023, we even had a small barrier relief fund or things like if they need a U-Haul or a small car repair or, basically, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that we've got off the top of our head, a short hotel stay, between like treatment and getting into sober living or something like that. Or getting into another program. So we deal with those barriers as well as any of the emotional ones that can be there, the grief, the depression, those can all happen too. And we still show up for them. We still check in on them. There's been times where I would even bring like a detox care package of like vitamin D, vitamin B, lots of fluids, things that can make at-home detox slightly more comfortable. Because, you know, if you find out somebody has cancer, people line up to bring you casseroles. But if you're going through detox because you have an addiction, figure it out. So then we follow through and support. We don't just give them the list or tell them what to do. Like, we go with them. We will transport. If the 12-step meeting is something that they find helpful, we'll go with them on that. If that's not what they want, we will find them other recovery pathways like Smart Recovery. Some people will do the Sinclair method, the Freedom Model. Some people just really need therapy, and that's what works for them. So if going to treatment is part of their plan or a requirement, we will do the coordination with different organizations to try to get people in there and then find their next steps after that, as well as any recovery wellness plan the parent wants to put in place for them. That can include helping them find safe childcare, helping them find diverse resources. We've bought formula for people before when they needed it between paychecks. We believe that every person in recovery is their own best resource. Individuals definitely know themselves better than I ever possibly could, or anybody else with any letters after their name. We do not require them to adapt to us. We adapt to them. I do not have a set program and you need to follow it in order to graduate success. And if you didn't do it, then you're the problem. If somebody with diabetes doesn't respond to the insulin that they are on, the doctor adjusts the treatment. We do not do that with addiction. We send them to the same treatment centers, to the same places, to the same programs, and tell them they are the reason that it isn't working. We adapt to them. Participants cannot get kicked out of our program, not for using, not for engaging in illegal anything. We have policies which is to make sure we are not accidentally party to something illegal. For example, we will give you a ride anywhere you want to any of your appointments. We will even drop you off at somebody's house. But if I drop you off at somebody's house, I'm not picking you up for 24 hours. Our services are 100% voluntary. Any organization that we engage with or build a relationship or have an MOU with agrees that should they decide not to work with one of our coaches or our program anymore, that does not count against them in any way. Peer support, recovery coaching is not peer support if it is not voluntary, and it is not voluntary if it is a court requirement. So we don't close cases either. Services and wraparound support continues until that recovery decides they're done, or in one case, they end up coming to work for us, which is ongoing support and the employment. We're hoping to explore some workforce development grants for that at some point in the future. We're a little bit at capacity at the moment, but that is in the plan. We don't require a faith commitment or a belief in a higher power, and this is important because many times when there is court-ordered recovery, it is court-ordered 12-step, and 12-step does not work without a faith. They might not be God in particular, but it is a faith in a higher power, and that is a violation of somebody's constitutional rights. As of December 2023, in our first year, we had a 94% success rate. I do not know of another addiction recovery support service or treatment service that can say that. We're pretty proud of that. Wait, there's more. It's free. All of our services are funded by the trainings and technical assistance that we do. We are SAMHSA approved technical assistance provider for recovery-oriented systems of care. We are also a TA provider approved through the Opioid Response Network. We do many trainings through Helios ARS, including Healing Center Engagement, CCAR Recovery Coach trainings, and all of those supplemental trainings as well. And as of now, we are one of 3 in the state of Wisconsin that are allowed to train that curriculum. We have a whole list of trainings, which should have put my website on there so y'all could check it out, but I did not. But I was in a bit of a rush today when I made this. So it is funded by that and then supported by grant funding as well. Last year we had the community impact grant through United Way, basic needs grant, community vision grant. What I really hope I am not forgetting somebody right now. Oh, of course, the Oshkosh Community Foundation grant, which was the one for Winnebago County, and our 1 year that we are hiring on after being in services is a Winnebago County resident, so that's also pretty cool. Yeah, that is the gist of the question.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Professor Dufferding.
Yeah, you mentioned SAMHSA, and if you could just tell the board here what is SAMHSA?
Oh, SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services agency. They're the feds. They're who decides what services and recovery should look like. They set the standards. They actually just put out a brand new comprehensive harm reduction program and recommendation that is really well done. And I usually do not say that about the federal government, but that was a good job. So that's SAMHSA. Yeah.
You said HHS, right? Oh. Any other questions? Supervisor Eisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patty, thank you for your presentation. If I proceed and if I'm getting what I hear sharing with us, is that you somehow deal with people who have fallen between the cracks of public social services.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%.
That's where you step in.
That is correct, yes.
Because of the sophistication of the public approach, kind of missing the human element or the vulnerabilities of the individual.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that you do have grant funding from Oshkosh Foundation or from similar public foundation, but you haven't had a close tie with social services.
Well, we did have some meetings. The first one, I had not been in the building before and got a little lost, so I was late. And then an interview for a new coach ran over when they were going to be training me on their intake process and how they do all their acronyms, because what Outagamie County does is going to be almost entirely different from what Winnebago County does. And their interpretation of state statute is going to be different as well. I was also late for that. And they had decided that they were going to go a different way. That was our interaction over there through the child welfare department. But we've still been serving people successfully within Winnebago County. Within our first year, we only had 1 year working here, we had 6 families. So 6 families is usually roughly anywhere from like 30 to 50 people. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but we don't just serve that individual who is afflicted with addiction. we work with their entire family. One of the first things that we do is we identify, okay, who are your key people? Who are your support? And how do we get them to understand how to, and what do they need too, to be supported so that they can also support their loved one or their family member going through this as best they can.
Supervisor Floyd.
Thank you very much for being here today. And like we Supervisor Eisenhower, by reading and understanding your presentation, it seems like you're filling in the gaps where social services fall short. So one of the questions that I have is, what are some of the opportunities and challenges? I know you touched on that briefly as you kind of work with more people and hopefully hire more recovery coaches from Winnebago. As you work more in this county, I guess what challenges do you see, but also opportunities?
So one of the opportunities, I think in Winnebago County is there is a more visible 12-step community here. So I think the structured government structures here have seen for themselves that for some people, like this brand of recovery is possible. So that belief is already there. So hopefully it won't be too much of a leap to say, hey, what if there are some other pathways to catch those other people, about 60% of them, that 12-step does not work for? What if there's another way to do that? What if there are more options out there? So I'm hoping that laying the groundwork here is not going to be has been for me in other parts of the states or just even in other states, period, because many of our contracts for training and consulting are out of state. So we've found a way to bring out of state resources right here to our community. So obviously funding is always the challenge. I believe that this work has value. And I think by how full our jails are, we could say that this work is needed. And many times we just heard of Damascus Road. These are born out of poverty. So I do not think that it makes any logical sense to pay poverty wages to solve an issue of poverty. We start out all of our coaches on a salary so they can count on exactly what's going to be coming every week. We really want to take a holistic approach to that. Like funding is always the issue. Relationship building is something that I can do, and sometimes it takes things a little bit longer than others. And I will just keep showing up until I realize I am not going anywhere.
One quick follow-up.
Yes.
We have a shelter care facility run by Human Services over on Harrison Street.
Okay.
That's mainly children in foster care system. And so, a lot of these children don't really have anywhere to go and whatnot. So family reunification is a big goal of yours. How do you see yourself interacting with our Human Services Department to try to keep that process going?
Well, one, there were some things within Winnebago County that I was a bit more impressed with than I have seen in other counties. For example, like just even one of the trainings that we do is recovery in colored language, because language shapes how you see the world, how you talk about things, and how you will understand them. And the language that they use, for example, like it's not an intake worker, it's not an investigative worker, it's a family assessment. It's just an assessment. It's much more neutral so that that role isn't pointed as somebody whose job it is to find a reason to remove this family and get services involved, right? Or to treat this investigatively like there has been a crime. It's really more neutral to try. I cannot tell you how many times normal interactions of things that happen in just normal parenthood have turned into a child welfare situation that should have never been there. Maybe there was some room for improvement and support. Child welfare is a tool, but it's a tool like a shotgun tool. And when you need a scalpel, that's the shotgun is not what you need. So there's always going to be room for improvement, but I have been carefully watching their out of home numbers, and they have stayed remarkably low. Not as low as I'd like to see, because I would love to see zero, but they're moving in a good direction. That's why I'm not so concerned about kicking in that door as much. Will eventually be, on the path, I think will be fine. For the kids in shelter care, there's another organization that I do partner with called Heads Up. They can, as young as 16, especially if they're moving into that aging out place, which I would be happy to get those connected if they're not already talking, which they might be. They do a lot of what I do, but for transitional age youth. Actually, one of their board members is also on my board, so we have a pretty good relationship.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Do you connect at all with the Ascend program? Part of Pillars?
Yep, I'm familiar. Yep, that's another very youth focused. We try to give kids the one thing that they want more than anything, which is their parents. So, I guess to piggyback on that question and the way that we would interact, typically would have nothing to do with the kid at all. Most of the time, we don't even meet the children. Because there are difficult situations in there and there are tough decisions that have to be made. And we're all people who had to live through it anyway. So it makes it very difficult to be 100% there for that person who could be perceived as doing a lot of harm if you also have a relationship with the kid. There's a lot more, I shouldn't say a lot because there's still not enough, but there are a lot more resources for kids in transitional age youth than there are for their parents, because many times once out of home care happens, just the traps of the system end up kind of taking the kids out as like the candy and the wrapper and throwing the parents out, as that wrapper, with this idea, and then thereby placing the burden of breaking generational curses on people whose brains aren't even fully developed yet. So we want to focus on the adults and help them step into adulthood to be the parent they want to be, that kid wants them to be, and we all want to see them be anyway.
Great, thank you. And are you familiar with Safe Families?
Yes.
Okay, because that organization focuses on the kids while the parent or parents are able to and then unify them. So
Yes, we are familiar, yeah.
might be a good fit there too.
We have tried, we've had some philosophical difference, but I'm always willing to keep on trying. I still think addiction is a medical disorder. So when it is okay for participants to post that publicly without any HIPAA or anything like that, as well as kids, now the whole world knows what's going on in their life. In order to raise funds for experiences, we've had some philosophical.
Yeah, I get that for sure. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry, Supervisor. Did you have a question?
Just more of a
So
comment, because I'll follow through with you later. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's most startled to hear, and I'm intrigued to talk to you later about what I'm interpreting, lack of continuity of even acronyms between counties. That was very startling to me. But thank you. That's something that we can visit with another time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. And now I am from robotics.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's going to close item number 7 on the agenda. We're going to open up item 8. Item 8 is a consideration vote ordinance to amend the Winnebago County General Code, section 1.1 sub 10, to increase and expand citizen member compensation on committees, commissions, boards, and other entities, as well as citizen member compensation. Now, we have actually discussed this previously at this committee, and as such, I'm going to put it right to the floor, so I'm not going to do any sort of introduction. So I'm going to just move that we consider this ordinance as described. Have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Okay, thank you very much. Discussion.
Just a quick question, is this on the agenda, Supervisor, enough to address?
Yes.
Which meeting?
When?
This has already been,
This is already.
It was.
It's already been-
Okay,
addressed-
so-
It was supposed to be addressed in December. And then one of the supervisors said, "Wait, why can't it go to JPS?" At which point I stated there was no need to go to JPS, and then there was reference, well, other people have gone to JPS, so it was referred back to JPS before it would go to PNF.
Okay, so it hasn't gone to PNF.
Well, it went, but they didn't consider it.
it went to the committee meeting. Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. We had a study of wages for county board supervisors. And the county board enacted a salary for supervisors. At the time, at the present time, we presently are on the per diem system rather than the salary system. We have, in addition to the county board supervisors, we have citizen members of committees, commissions, and boards. Additionally, they are now receiving the same per diem that county board supervisors received. And if they go to various functions, regional or state or national, they also are reimbursed for and for expenses that are approved by the county board chairman. When I was reflecting on the increase or the salary that was approved by our county board, I said to myself, county board supervisors get a raise, but what about the other citizen members of the commissions, committees, and boards? They ought to get a raise, just as the county board supervisors, because they are as much integral to the functioning of the county government success as is the supervisors. Now, this ordinance will increase the citizen members of Winnebago County committees, commissions, and boards, and other entities to $75 per half day and $100 per full day. That is over 4 hours. Looking at the resolution itself, going to the red paragraph, it also states in recognition of stress and concerted effort required, the Board of Canvas citizen members shall be paid $100 per half day of service, 4 hours or less, and $150 per full day of service, more than 4 hours. I have attended many Board of Canvas assemblages, and I tell you, these people, these volunteers, the appointees from the Democratic and the Republican parties put in one heck of a day and are under substantial stress. It's only, in my opinion, it's only appropriate that they would get a little larger boost than a citizen member on an ordinary committee. And the canvases are only at election time, so it's not a routine meeting and expense. Now, at our November meeting, we entertained this issue. In the course of the discussion and presentation by corporate counsel, the issue was short-circuited and directed to the Personnel and Finance Committee. Had I been more alert, I would have complained and said, why don't we take action on this? But I'm not that smart. So we didn't take action on it. We just permitted it to slip through our hands and put it on the Personnel and Finance Committee that does the money decisions. I attended the meeting in December of the Personnel and Finance Committee, and there were the 5 members of the committee there. One of the members of the committee was adamantly opposed to increasing this. In fact, the individual said from their experience that school boards, many other municipal organizations have citizen participants that receive no per diem for their volunteer services. And that particular individual was adamantly opposed to raising what we're already providing to citizen members. That was not the tenor of the 4 other members who were pretty favorable to the issue, but it was decided by the strength of a recommendation that this be sent back to the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee for our opinion on this issue. And I went on, the corporate counsel had asked the finance director to provide a agenda item report. However, her records, she didn't have a record of that report that was distributed to the committee members then. But from my recollection of what the final outcome was, the fiscal impact of this recommendation of the increase on the resolution to $75 per half day, $100 per full day, $100 per half day for canvas workers, and $150 full day for canvas workers. The 2024 approved Winnebago County budget in the non-divisional section of the budget under County Board General Fund, item citizen per diem, object number 51106, allocates for 2024 $23,000 for these citizen per diems. And the estimated cost for the increase that is recommended was an amount of $10,000. The revised allocation would come to approximately $33,000. I'm sure that we can fine tune this as we proceed. What I would ask the committee to do is entertain this on its merits, and then rather than send this back to the Personnel and Finance Committee, I will take this to the county board, just as a similar resolution was taken in December from this committee to the county board. There's no need for the Personnel and Finance Committee to hone in on this simply because they already had their opportunity to do that. They declined it. And it's introduced by an individual as well as a committee, should this committee agree with this idea.
All right, thank you, thank you. Just a couple comments first. The first is, this was on the agenda, we did discuss it at JPS. And we were entertaining, the discussion, for sure. But ultimately it was pulled by the author, and that's why we didn't vote on it. Nonetheless, it's back on the agenda.
Can I point out, under,
It was pulled by the corporate council.
I actually asked you, Supervisor.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Well, I'm telling you, I asked you if you wanted to talk
Go back
about it
and
here or
Go back and read it. See what
go
it
back
said.
and watch the video. Regardless, Supervisor, regardless, it's on the agenda. We're gonna talk about it now. And it's something that I personally support, but at the same time, we did have that discussion during JPS in November on what the appropriate method is in terms of where should this go? And from my recollection, Corporation Council gave us the option, specifically you the option of where it goes. And it was decided at that point it should go to the PNF, because I wanted to vote on it, so I think it's a great idea. Nonetheless, here we are. In Corporation Council, in terms of how this goes forward, that's up to the.
certainly under your rules, the county board supervisor can bring this directly to the board. But let me point out, my input at the last meeting was that under your rules, PNF, specifically, the duties and responsibilities of personnel and finance include recommending to the county board prior to the earliest time for filing nomination papers, a salary schedule for elected officials, appointed officials. This is talking about appointments. That's why my recommendation was, I believe that personnel and finance should entertain this. Because if we go back to the jurisdiction of JPS, yes, JPS, as we all know, reviews policy issues and advises and recommends regarding clerk of courts, sheriff, district attorney, coroner, corporation counsel, family court commissioner, veteran services, register of deeds, county clerk, court commissioner, law library, emergency management, and child support agency. It doesn't say anything about citizen members. But even aside from that, as Supervisor Eisen indicated correctly, he has every right to go forward privately to the board with this ordinance.
However, you did say at the November meeting that it would not be a problem if JPS heard this.
That's correct.
So you said,
That's
listen,
correct.
from what I remember, you said this really should go to PNF, but JPS can also hear it. And that was where we left it. Now, with that said, it's on the agenda. We have a second. We're having discussion. So I would like to proceed with other discussion on this, and I would like to have a vote. So, and then how Supervisor Eisen wants to take forward will be up to him in that way, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, his name is on it, but then depending on how this board votes,
Right,
then it would be this.
right.
Committee's name would be on it.
Maybe. Because we could also, depends on where we land on.
Right.
On the vote. Supervisor Eisen.
I would defer to the judgment of the chair. I have no, dog in the fight to bring this to the board. So I will defer to the judgment of the chair, whether this should go back to the finance committee, or if it should go to the board.
Okay, Thank you. Supervisor Plum.
I mean, this is notwithstanding about the content of the resolution, as with Chairman Stafford, I agree with the content of the resolution. I think it should be passed. I'm just kind of trying to clarify a couple of procedural items. So with saying PNF is now on the resolution as it's currently written, should that be struck? Because PNF they never voted on it, but they made a motion to send it here. So even if in PNF's own terms, they wanted it to come here.
Well, again, and my recollection is, there was one supervisor who referenced the fact that, well, why hasn't this gone to JPS? I know other resolutions or ordinances have gone to JPS. And I believe that it should go to JPS. And I believe that once that statement was made, everybody sort of jumped on the bandwagon and said, okay, let's go to JPS. Is that your recollection, Supervisor Eisen?
I'll go back and watch it on the replay.
And maybe I'm getting too
I'll
deep into
defer to
semantics,
the,
which is
to the
fine.
facts.
I just, maybe I'm getting too deep into semantics at all, but I just do want to say that this committee never heard the compensation bill package for supervisors. That was just PNF. I mean, we heard a presentation from them, right? But if I stand corrected, did we take a vote on that? If we did, so we may have, right?
We have.
Okay, so if that's the case, yes, on the compensation.
We did.
Okay, so then that means that this would line up
It would.
logically.
And that's why to me, it made sense for us to hear it.
Right, so then I stand completely corrected. That's fine.
And at the same time, we can vote on this and it could pass, and I could suggest that this doesn't have PNL, or it doesn't have JPS on it. We could just have a committee vote.
Yes, you didn't have to, it doesn't have to be respected.
Right, so just so we're clear, we don't have to be listed there, it would just be a committee vote.
And
And it typically, I don't have it on there submitted if it's not unanimous.
Okay.
Just
And it doesn't matter if we're on it or not, to me. I just want to make sure that we're doing things logically, procedurally sound. And if and I do remember now, this committee did hear the compensation, compensation task force. And we believe it passed what they recommended. So
we did.
I'm fine with that, and I'm good to go on this. So thanks.
Any other discussions, Supervisor Hanson?
This isn't going to affect my vote on this, but first, based on what we just said, if it advances today, a question for Corporation Council, and let's say it does go to the board, its next board meeting, what is the, it might be hard to speculate, is someone going to, no, it hasn't cleared PNF, go back?
They might very well, but I can tell you, it's not gonna go on the January agenda because
Missed the deadline.
if they missed the deadline.
That's right.
So there is time for this to hit PNF and still get to the next board meeting if that's the path that this takes.
But again, Supervisor Eisen owns it since he's the one that brought it.
And that's what I'm saying, if that's the path that it's taken, right? Okay. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, and before we take a vote, I do want to just mention, I'm going to abstain from this. I support this entirely, but I am going to abstain because my wife is on the docket to be considered for a appointment. Thank you so much. An appointment to the Winnebago committee or board, and I want to make sure that we're nice and clear on this. So with that, I am going to abstain, but it's only because of that conflict of interest. Okay. Alrighty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay, that passes. 4 ayes, 1 abstain.
And so then it will, should it be respectfully submitted by JPS? Since you have,
Yes.
and here I.
One second, Supervisor Eisen.
would it be appropriate to provide in that, resolution that goes to, personal and finance, an explanation of the abstain, that the abstainer, abstained due to, a pending, expectation of an appointment to a county board position.
Not only that, I will personally speak with the chair of PNF and explain my vote.
Thank you.
So it will go to PNF in February.
Right, and then would be ultimately in the February board meeting, because it can't go, regardless, you can't go in January. Because we missed the deadline by, what?
6 hours,
6
7 hours.
Well, a little more now, almost 7. So, well, 7.5. I can do math. Okay, all right, that closes item number,
They don't have the door to this place.
item number 8. That closes item number 8. Opening item number 9, Corporation Council report. And I do have to comment on the nice use of bullet points. So we know exactly what we're talking about.
Thank you. Well, we want to comply with the meeting. Thank you again for giving me an opportunity to try to just give you an update as to where things stand. One of the big things, thank you to JDS, the board, is the office reorganization. We had recruited for one attorney, and we thought we had a wonderful fit, someone who had a ton of experience and was supposed to start today, which was great, even though he was practicing somewhere else. Unfortunately, I came back to the new year and received word that he withdrew his acceptance because basically he received an offer to stay where he was, and we couldn't compete with that offer. It was a huge jump. So he said, I had to think of my family, Marianne, and I said, no, I totally understand. I wish you well. So the recruitment starts over again. That's fine. One door closes, another opens. That's fine. So that's what we're doing there. I wanted to get an idea as to case numbers for last year. So this should be, we have a breakdown of mental health cases, new cases that were opened in 2023 for mental health totaled 339 cases. That does not include extensions. That is, there were mental health cases where there was someone already under commitment, and then there was a need to extend the order. So that 339 is only new cases, right? Of those cases, we had 7 jury trials that were derived from mental health issues. We had guardianships. There were 119 new guardianship cases opened. I'm not going to go through all of the due process protected place, and I'm just going to try to give you the highlights. And in terms of CHIPS cases, which is what the Helios representative made, we've had 40 cases that were new CHIPS, children in need of protection or service cases. And I think I've told you in the past that there has been a focus based on the state saying, you know, children typically do well if they can stay with their parent of origin, their biological family. Sometimes that can't happen. But I can tell you, when I first started here and was doing CHIPS work and guardianship work, there were well over 200, 250 CHIPS cases a year. Now, in 2023, we've had 40. Okay, so there has been a substantial, and I know the pendulum swings back and forth, absolutely. But studies and the state have been saying, if you can try to keep the children with a biological family, you can, as long as they're safe and that type of thing. And our numbers bear that out. In terms of documents, we have had 19 responses to motions and briefs. Now, these briefs are not appellate briefs. These briefs are, let's say there's an issue with planning and zoning. There is going to be a hearing held in front of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So a brief would have to be written because the applicant has hired an attorney and is writing a brief. So we've had those. In terms of appellate briefs, we have had 17 appellate briefs. Now, I will tell you that basically what happens is someone appeals if they don't like the ruling. In all of those briefs, my office did not initiate the appeal because we prevailed. The other side initiated the appeal. Of the 17 appellate briefs, and again, we're dealing with Court of Appeals, we have been affirmed in 8 cases. We have been reversed in 3 cases, and there are 6 cases pending decision. Now, again, as you all know, a brief is really a misnomer because the document is not brief. I think I showed you this the last time, but this is a typical brief that is filed, okay? So you have to do a statement of facts, and then you have to basically show the law, and then you do the argument, say this is how the law meshes with how we should prevail. In addition to the brief, there's an appendix, which is all of the background material. This is a typical appendix, which is attached to the brief. And mind you, especially with mental health cases, Chip's case, these have to be redacted because obviously there are confidentiality concerns. So it is a time-sensitive issue, but in any event. So we have that. In addition to the 17 briefs, we have had just 5 responses to petitions for review. Petitions for review are filed with the Supreme Court as opposed to the Court of Appeals. And so we have to respond. Of those 5 responses, 4 have involved Chapter 51 commitments, which are mental commitments, and 1 involved guardianship. And of those 5 responses, 3 were denied, which is good because we said, no, you don't need to look at this. 1 was accepted and briefing has occurred. And then 1, again, we are waiting for a decision from the Supreme Court. So that's where we stand on that. In terms of legislative drafting, there were 147 ordinances and resolutions drafted. There has been attendance at 75 committee, commission, and board meetings, 17 county board meetings. So the board meetings does not include the 17 county board meetings. We have been at 12 980 meetings. We have had 16 muni code meetings, the general code meetings that we're still working on, coupled with going to other meetings involving management meetings, department head meetings, trainings, COOPCOD, the WRC, because we're trying to speak to our people in terms of what needs to be done for cases. That totaled 322 meetings in addition to those other meetings. And then, as you know, we had contract reviews because we try to look at all the contracts that come in. And according to my staff, there have been 220 contract reviews in 2023. So that's where our numbers were for that year. And then finally, I just wanted to give you an update as to the 980s, and though I know the sheriffs can give you that as well. But our most recent resident moved into the trailer on December 19th. And so far, there have been no problems. Wood. And then I am also told that I wanted to go there before dark, but I didn't get to it. The 3 houses have been framed. So hopefully they should be ready to go, although again, right now, not good. We have housing for the two that needed housing. I know there are 4 on the list for supervised release, though no one has applied yet. But that's basically where that stands. So,
Great, thank you. Questions? Any
I
questions?
just want to say thank you.
Yes.
All the work that your office does. I mean, it's incredible, all the stuff you're able to get through and all the meetings and cases you have to attend and
we try.
communicate with, and I know that staffing is tight, so hats off to you, seriously. Thank you.
Supervisor Isaac.
Don't even have time to work.
Yeah. And I would just like to echo what Supervisor Bloom said. I think that especially as county board members, we can be sometimes a little impatient, just generally speaking. And I think it helps everyone, including myself, understand the complexities of your department. And there is a lot that goes on and a lot of things that we don't necessarily even see. Doesn't mean that there's tons of work being done. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to close item number 9 and open item number 10, Sheriff's Report.
Hello, everyone. So Sheriff Mock was not able to be here tonight. He had a conflict. So if you don't recall my name, I'm Todd Christopher, Chief Deputy for the Sheriff's Office. Been here since 1992. So jail counts, our numbers are starting to become more manageable. Today's counts were 221. If you recall back towards late November and early December, we were in the 250s regularly. It caused a lot of problems with our congregate housing ability to move people around, because you get more people in there, the harder it is to put people in the cells that they need to be in based on the classification. We were able to get through the COVID outbreak that we experienced. One thing I just want to back up with our populations, the female population, today we have 43. Question had been asked. Okay. Yeah. So it's significant. It's a significant segment of our population. Yeah. Preliminary numbers looking for 2023 to date, our average daily population for females is right around 37. That's just rough. They have to get finalized at the end of it. So it is a significant portion of our population. So we were able to get through the latest COVID outbreak that we had. Overall, we had 69 inmates in the most recent bout that we had test positive. And as of today, we are clear from COVID in the jail, which is great. Overall, our totals for 2023, we had 88 positive inmates. We administered 1,121 tests. So it's a substantial amount of work. We do all that coordination with public health, hand in hand with them, follow the guidelines for congregate housing, for when people can be moved back into populations and how all that works. So,
so on that, do you mind if I just ask a question or two? When we have something like that, what is our policy? How do we handle when we have an outbreak?
So when we have an outbreak, we test the symptomatic individuals, and then it's a 10-day policy as far as when they become basically not considered contagious anymore. So we test them at the day 5, day 7, and then at the end of day 10, as long as they're not symptomatic, we will put them back into other areas that are unaffected. So there's masking. We do a lot of extra wellness checks with the health services unit. We provide Tylenol free of charge. This last bout, like the rest of the community, it doesn't seem to be as severe as what previous versions of COVID had.
Everybody, yeah. Do we have any hospitalizations?
Nobody was hospitalized. No real significant strong responses. Everybody was able to treated on scene medical services. And that's kind of been the trend in the community as well. The ERs have not been overlooked. So, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So like I said, as of today, knock on wood, we got through that. We had a meeting last Friday with the architectural firm Martin & Riley for the DS1, DS2 remodel project. So bids will be going out for that in May, and they hope to have the project completed mid-October. So we're starting to move along since the money just got awarded at the November board meeting. We are continuing to do search and rescue operations for the lost kayaker. Since the last meeting, December 4th, Sheriff Motz provided you an update. We've done additional searches, which include, we put out our drone team, the DNR assist us with overhead aerial flights. They do observation to see if there's anything that looks suspicious that we would go and explore. DNR also has a tow fish, so they pull behind the boat and they try to get the abnormalities in the bottom of the floor of the body of water to see if there's any place our diver should go. Same thing with Bruce's Legacy. We got a break in the weather. We're warmed up a little bit, so we were able to start to do operations again. So we were able to get out December 8th, the 22nd, the 26th, the 27th, and then again January 2nd and 3rd. So now we are going to be running into a snowstorm, like everybody knows, and the temps are going to plummet. So that's going to change the dynamics. We were able to recover a few additional items of personal property that were associated with the missing person. So, but not as of yet.
So at what point do we stop looking or do we continue to look indefinitely? How does that process work?
Typically, if we're not able to locate the deceased, Mother Nature in the spring will typically take care of it as the waters will start to form decomposition and they surface.
But we're gonna
Typically,
still.
yeah, we would still, it's an active
Good.
investigation, absolutely.
Disappearance was on November 28th. Is that correct?
Disappearance was on November 26th. Right there. Yep. So that is still an active investigation, and if you have any specific questions, I do have Captain Todd Christie with us. He oversees our field services division, so it's both the detective and the patrol. Mike Seawall was supposed to be staying with us. He's a lieutenant of our special victims unit, but as you saw, he got called out for an emergent sexual assault that requires his attention. So, also guest appearance is Lieutenant Mitch Ruby. Ma'am, you probably recognize him from his days at the screening center. So now he's in our corrections division. So if you have any specific questions in regards to that, he's our guy.
Congratulations on his promotion.
Yeah. Yeah, Mitch is a great guy. I wouldn't say that just because he's here in the room. Either. I'd say that anytime.
Wonderful.
So as far as building on the staffing updates, we did have the 4 retirements that took place at the end of December. It's big hit. We lost 110 years of combined experience amongst them. So we moved forward with the promotions to the 2 detective positions that you folks authorized. They're currently training right now, the new individuals. We will have our MEG investigator in place. He's already working in a limited capacity with some of the MEG investigators currently right now, but he will be in full effect in February 5th. So he'll be taking over those responsibilities. So getting those individuals up and running. Vacancies within the dispatch center. We currently have 2. We have interviews scheduled January 25th. Patrol, we have 4 vacancies. We have 3 people that are in background for the hiring process. 1 is an external candidate. The other 2 are internal. One's a correctional deputy and 1 is actually a dispatcher. So we would rather lose people to our own patrol division than have them lose them to Appleton PD or Grand Chute or even Oshkosh. So in that regards, it'll create additional vacancies on them that we'll have to try to backfill. Corrections as of today, we're full, but then again, we do anticipate some vacancies. Those were the 6 corrections officers that were the interns that went into the full-time positions. That's what helped beef up our staffing. Booking clerk, we have 2 vacancies and 2 in background. If you follow our Facebook page, I'm sure you saw the casual day fundraisers. That's what allows me to have like a beard and Kim to wear jeans on a Friday. This year we donated money to Damascus Road, which I thought was appropriate. One of the organizations along with Boys and Girls Club Oshkosh, Boys and Girls Brigade, and then our Citizens Academy Alumni Association. In total, the total is $5,860.
How many people participated in it?
I don't know.
Pretty much.
Half.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
So we've been doing this since 2009, and we have raised for local nonprofits over $78,000.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
That is amazing.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know Supervisor Flom was always interested in the drug overdoses. Captain Christie checked with the medical examiner's office. She plans on doing a full presentation next month.
Okay.
So she plans on being here if she hasn't already told you that. So she plans on it. But just to give you an idea, we're currently at 44 confirmed overdoses with 5 pending, which we believe would be overdoses as well. And if you have any specifics, again, Todd is here. He can answer anything. He has spreadsheets. He tracks all that on a monthly basis to know where our cases are specifically. And we are, it's the end of our year, 2023, so we're doing all the numbers crunching from last year, and then we spend this month putting together our annual report. Okay, so we'll be presenting that hopefully next year. Kim has a big role in that, so she's not too overwhelmed with all the public records requests. She can get working on that. So again, we'll be in February. I'm happy to take any questions.
Fantastic. I have a couple and then I'll,
Sure.
just, you mentioned, the Meg unit.
Yes.
What about the other position? Where are we in terms of getting that up and running?
He's training also. That's going to be Detective Kyle Schrader. He's training with our current, one of them in the special victim unit already, Brian Hens. He will also be up in full speed February 5th.
And do we have an idea of the focus area? Because we had talked about so many different things.
On the SVU position?
The SVU.
That's gonna be the frauds, that's going to be the sexual assaults, the ICAC. So within the investigations unit, we got the investigative branch and the SVU branch.
Right.
And that SVU branch, we've always had that kind of as the ICAC portion, but by beefing that up, now it's pretty much all the online frauds, it's abuse to the elderly, all our sensitive population. So Kyle Schrader he was a detective we already had in place. And so he's trained in all the other areas. He's transferring into that. While he's transferring into that, he's training his replacement that's just been promoted. And the same thing with the Meg unit guy. He was already a detective within our division, getting assigned to the Meg unit. He's training his replacement. Everybody will be full-time in place, basically the first week in February.
So the two newest detectives will be general investigators.
Okay, perfect. And then do you have an update on the 41 patrol conversation?
Yeah, so we had a virtual meeting with the Department of Revenue on December 11th. And then it was followed up with that meeting actually by Corporation Counsel on the 13th. And then spoke with their chief legal counsel. This is a very rare circumstance. They described it as occurring less than a handful of times. So as of right now, the levy limits aren't changing for Winnebago County for this year. And then they're going to continue to deal with this, even if it's granted, we have the ability to appeal it in the statutes. Speaking with the exec's office, they're looking at presenting it in front of the Wisconsin County Association, trying to get some guidance. We actually, based on Department of Revenue's request, rather than just using generalized numbers where we said it was a 4.62 calls per service on a 5-year average, we actually took 2022, Captain Laura Mendola, you remember her, right? So she went through all of our CAD records and actually drilled down to every single call for service up there for 2022. It broke it down by the number of calls. So when we look at average number of calls per day for Fox Crossing, it was 3.18 is what they would be having to respond to now based on what the sheriff's office had done. Menasha PD would have been 0.49 and Nina would have been 0.85. So if we look at a dollar standpoint, the numbers aren't nearly what they originally were proposed to be. The original Fox Crossing was approximately 150,000. All three of those agencies, if we combine our hourly rate with fringe, it's under $50,000. It's $49,375. So it's very complex because if you look at also, we were able to enter in onto the record other information that basically shows how we're being a good partner. And there are services that we provide to those law enforcement agencies that we could actually bill them for. For example, if you look at Fox Crossing, we staff their complaint desk so they don't have to pay a person to be there. We take all their calls. If somebody shows up, they pick up the phone and it rings our dispatch. This is outside of like the 911. This is outside of the dispatching police and the fire like we're supposed to do. This is where actually answering their complaint desk. It's 125.5 hours a week. If we break that down to billing, we could bill them $237,000 a year for those services. We could also bill Menasha $241,000 for their services that we provide, because they're able to eliminate positions and not staff their complaint desks. So I would assume that the Department of Revenue, hopefully, when they look at the balancing test, are we being a good partner, and does that come into consideration? I don't know. But from a logic standpoint, it sure seems like it would.
And the concern is that, this is undermining interdepartmental cooperation. And it has an effect because this is Winnebago County, right? We have 71 other counties. So what is that gonna translate into? So there will be a declaratory ruling. We're gonna be looking at that. But yeah, we'll keep you
Beyond
posted.
just our county.
Yeah,
Consideration.
we think there could be, yeah.
The
So
sheriff has made it clear to the chiefs already that he's gonna work with, corporation counsel. We're gonna draft something that says that all of a sudden we stop providing this, because this is what it's laying the foundation, the way the claim they're laying is that if we stop providing these services of taking their complaint desk calls at night, they could all of a sudden now try to get a tax levy adjustment for $237,000. That's not what this is intention of this. I'm not a CPA. I don't understand this, but my understanding of this, when my tax bill comes, it shows me on there what I paid in the city of Oshkosh. I thought the Fox Crossing individuals, the residents were already paying these limits already. So I'm not sure how this gets reallocated. It's above my pay grade, I guess.
I think they would say it's a matter of how much they're getting from the levy. And
Yeah.
It's a matter of degree of funds, but I understand.
Above my pay grade.
Right. Supervisor Hanson.
Yes, sir.
Did I hear that correctly? You're doing 125 hours a week for Fox Crossing?
We staff, yes,
I heard that
they staff their complaint desk Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30. So they have somebody there for 42 and a half hours. The rest of the time it defers to us. So 125.5 hours a week. We work with them like the city of Oshkosh just had a phone out installed outside their building. So if you go there and the department is closed, you pick up the phone. If you want the city of Oshkosh, you want to meet an officer, you want help, whatever, it brings up to our dispatch center after hours. This is all, we do a lot of cooperative stuff for people that we balance out what we're doing for people, and we think we're providing a lot of services.
And it's tough because you want to provide these services, but then at what point are you putting yourself on the hook for some pretty big expenses if you can't provide those services that you're trying to follow?
Journey of expectations.
Okay. Supervisor Defferty.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, other than, the MEG unit and that other position, is there any other, vacancies for just regular law enforcement that you have?
Yeah, those would be the ones that I do.
Patrols at 4.
Yeah, patrol on 4.
Yep. Okay, and,
Corrections with that 0.
and how many applicants do you have for that?
Well, I have 3 in background, and I have another eligibility list. So the
Okay.
eligibility list, there are valid candidates on there. All of those, in fact, are internal candidates. So
Okay,
we can't just create a huge vacuum
sure.
in the corrections. And some of them would have to go to the law enforcement recruit academy. If it's a non-certified law enforcement officer from our jail, by the time we hire them to be a patrol deputy, send it to recruit academy, and then put them through the field training program, it's 1 full year before they're actually on their own.
Okay,
So there's a lot of lag.
Yeah.
That's a long lead item.
Because
yeah. So and I was just curious, have you gone to other places like in Milwaukee to advertise that you have an opening?
yeah, all over the state.
All over the state?
We've been to job fairs all the
Okay.
time. We've been out of state. We've been to Chicago, Minneapolis.
Okay.
We hit the gamut.
Yeah.
Everybody is fighting for the same good candidates.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought, but, okay. And so now my question goes, I'm gonna move this question over to the STAR program.
Yeah.
So since that has been in effect, have you seen a decrease in the average stay for those that are, within the jail?
You know, Mitch?
I don't know off the top of my
I
head.
don't know if the program has been in place long enough to know if it's had an effect on our PVP.
Okay, yeah, so I'm guessing because of how new it is.
It is.
Probably won't get that, an answer for that probably for at least another 6 months or so, you think?
Yeah, I will write it. Mitch is putting that on his to-do list to see if we can start to do some statistical analysis, see if it's affecting the ADP.
Okay, yeah, that's something I'm just very curious on. I just want to see how we can quantify and, use metrics here on that, just going forward so that, eventually, we can figure out what's working, what's not, and then what we can improve on.
Right now, I know we've been meeting a lot with our partner agencies, trying to identify future funding sources to make sure this isn't going to fizzle from a lack of funding.
Yeah, and I suppose this is probably a question that I should probably ask Solutions, but they're not here. But obviously, you know, we had Patty from Helios Recovery. I know that there's a lot of other recovery resources within Winnebago County. Are you open to the idea that we could still connect those people to those other resources, or is Solution just kind of like it?
No, we are open. We are just barely dipping our toes into the waters of treatment and recovery and wraparound services. We know the waters are real deep. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be looking for a lot more assistance, no doubt.
Okay,
More,
great.
for sure, more than one vendor can provide.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like, it's great to see that we have these organizations now that are willing to come and meet people where they're at.
And I've been doing this a long time and I wasn't familiar with that programming.
Yeah,
So when
right.
you said they were big in Outagamie, I was like, oh, that makes sense if they're just starting to get into this footprint.
Yeah, great, excellent. That's all I got.
With regards to the, like STAR program and other counseling services, I'm glad to hear that right now we have 69, or excuse me, we have 0 COVID, but it went up to 69. When we are at the 69, there's no services that stop for them, is there? They still have access to the STAR counselor, excuse me, the Solutions Recovery and all that.
Most programs.
Anyone that wants counseling still gets it?
Yeah, I can answer it.
Yeah, step right up.
Yeah,
I know you know the minutia better than I would.
sure. So when COVID
Short
breaks,
answer was gonna be, yes. It's still-
yeah, so when COVID broke out in the jail, what happens is we stopped the face-to-face personal counseling stuff inside the jail. What we're allowing to do for Recovery Solutions to come in and use our professional visitation booths, so there's a plate pane of glass in between. We basically stopped all of in-service, in-person stuff, just so we're not cross-contaminating with counselors, volunteers, and the inmates and vice versa.
So it's more challenging.
Did you have any follow-up questions or?
Not sure, that I just, I'm uncomfortable that someone that might want counseling might not have access to it.
Well, I can give you an example of, so the people that are with Recovery Solutions, or say someone is requesting specific chaplain services, I would reach out to our religious volunteers and say, this inmate specifically is requesting services. So we're just not having the larger group things, because we can't accommodate it during an outbreak like that.
But you said, granted, but they still have the one-on-one services available.
Correct.
And they still have access to a chaplain if they.
Correct.
Like
We had
our volunteer chaplains.
Yes, we accommodated that over the Christmas season. We had a few inmates that requested specifically to have a chaplain or a religious person that's on our list to come in and meet with them. And they did that through the professional visitation as well. It's just a little bit more time consuming on our end to make sure that the professional visitation booth is open, but we still got it done.
Now, something like that, oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor, can I ask a question? I don't want to step on you. Okay. When it comes to things like that, do you have conversations with our health department at all, or are these decisions that we just make internally to the sheriff's office? So did we talk to like Director Gearnan as an example?
Yeah, we cover public health all the time.
Okay.
In regards to the con.
Okay,
we work in a very litigious environment, right, in the jail. And we get sued regularly for it. We've even gotten sued for our policies and procedures in regards to the COVID outbreak last time. We're still dealing with that. Yeah, we get sued all the time. Right, Marianne? I'm constantly sending you plain notices.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an extremely litigious society. So yeah, we always make sure that our policies and procedures, and we're following best practice from public health.
All right. Perfect. Any
Particularly with
other?
the congregate housing, they're more stricter than you would have in the general population.
Gotcha. Supervisor Plum.
So I have a question about the upcoming ice fishing season, or by the weather standards right now, lack thereof.
I think it's gonna happen. Now, when that cold snap.
It's been cold. So with the temperature decreasing, you know, there are a lot of ice fishing events, surgeons bearing, stuff like that, as we kind of move into the end of January, beginning of February. Based on the condition of the ice, obviously what we see out there right now in the past few days is going to be different from what it is in the next few weeks. Do you have any sort of con-ops or any other sort of planning for ice rescues as we get closer to these events, given it may be a little bit riskier this year? I mean, we'll see But how does your department prepare for this as we get closer to it? Because every year there's always something.
Yeah, there always are. We do a lot of, coop cog stuff you were talking about earlier. We do a lot of that with the local fire departments. So you know that we're getting we had the station, and 32 Lead Nashville, Husky rescue boat. The air went down. We're getting the newest one is supposed to be getting delivered this week, the one that we're renting. Okay, so it's gonna be there. So we always make sure we have enough response capacity to where when there's one that gets deployed, there's always one that's staged. That's the working model that we follow. We do a lot of tabletops, much like when we had the snow squall last year. After those things, we always do after action reviews. We always say, what could we have done better? What did we learn? What are the lessons from these things? But one of the biggest things we do is just the inter operations of, it's like I serve on the school safety committees for both Nina and Oshkosh, right? So if they have something that happens there, it's like, I know you by first name, you know me by first name, we see each other, we know what our operating plans are, we know how things work. We talk about things in advance, we don't make up things on the fly. That's not the way we operate. There's specific jump off channels for if you're gonna have tactical operations. There's a whole, and the people that really do it, like a Tim Eichmann, is a lot of people don't know this, but when you get longitude off of GPSs, there's different ways you can interpret it, and you have to have your radios programmed the right way. Do you know what that's about, Dusty? Well, that's his area of expertise, the digital world. So it's like, I thought perhaps he would, but there's a lot. So they pre-practice all of that, so we have a good response.
And one more follow-up. I know Sheriff Mach mentioned about the airboats. We're talking about the airboats. The three others listed in by a direct.
Yeah.
National appropriation. Is that by a grant or is that an earmark?
Just direct allocation. I think it's earmarked. It's not.
It's
Right.
earmarked.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good.
And we haven't heard anything on that. Okay. Fingers crossed, hoping to. That would be a nice windfall for us. Yes.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that closes item number 10 on the agenda. Opening item 11, which is the next meeting date, which is February 5th at 6 p.m. The deadline for that meeting will be Monday, January 22nd. Please forward those requests to myself and we will get that on the agenda. Closing item 11, opening item 12, adjournment.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so moved.